Talk about that. Talk about the MLS draft and when you signed up. Or I don't know if you signed up for it. I don't know if they just call you and tell you that you're included in the draft. Like, talk about the whole process, before, during, after, the way you went about the move and everything.
Yeah. So like, I tried to kind of during the season, so fall of 2019, I tried to sort of stay in the moment as much as possible, just because I knew like the better I do and the better our team does, the better my chances are of continuing to play. So I was just trying to handle business in terms of that and be in the present, not so much in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so basically how it works is in years past, there'd been like a week-long combine in Orlando, but so it's the MLS combine, and to that you get invited to it and stuff like that. But starting last year, they sort of changed it to just a weekend event. They call it the MLS Showcase instead, which you had to be invited to. But so as soon as we lost our first round NC2A tournament, came to Louisville, which was really disappointing, obviously. But then the next day, I woke up and had an email saying that I'd been invited to that. So that was it made me feel a little bit better about losing. So yeah, I went to the combine there, and how that works is like all the clubs have scouts there, and you do a training session, 2 training sessions, and you play a match, and that's it.
What do the training sessions look like?
Pretty basic. Like, so there were 2 other goalkeepers there. So we did a goalkeeper session, like nothing major, just more of like a warm up and stuff like that. And then we played small sided and then box to box. That was the training session in the evening. And in the morning we did like physical testing was the first training session. So like, I think like 40 yard dash, vertical jump, and then like a lateral quickness thing.
What was your time? What was your 40 time?
I would be embarrassed to say I'm not that pacey, but they actually didn't tell us what they were, because I was curious. I actually spent a good amount of time training, but I don't know. I think I was faster than the other 2 goalkeepers, but I have I mean, that's just, it could be totally me.
Okay. Can you talk about that? You said you trained beforehand, so you knew what they were going to be training you on and looking for.
Yeah. So yeah, you know what the test, so it's a 5-10-5 lateral quickness, a 40-yard sprint, and then a vertical jump. So like, look, I think it's not like the NFL combine where like, if you run a 4.4 versus a 4.3, that's like $10 million worth difference in that time. There's so much less put on those numbers in the MLS, but also like doesn't necessarily hurt to do well in those things. Like so Roy Boateng, who's a year older than me at UC Davis, and also was playing for New York Red Bulls this past season, he went to the combine and just crushed it. Like, he was fast. He was the fastest. And he had the highest vertical, and he was in the top 5 in the lateral quickness. And that, I think, helped him out ultimately. He got picked, I think, 16th overall or even higher. I'm not sure. Jeez. But so that was my kind of mindset. I was like, well, I know I'm going to do this. I'm going to put in a little bit of work to try and get better at it. So I went to – I had an opportunity, like we have at Davis, there's like the head strength and conditioning coach, and then he has a group of assistants who sort of work with different teams. And Doug Coleman is the guy who works with men's soccer. When I was there, and I just went to Coach Coleman, I was like, look, this is what I have to do. Can you help me get ready? And he had a lot of experience working with NFL guys when he was coaching at Missouri. So he sort of was able to sort of structure our like 3.5 weeks, a month of a training camp to prepare me for those tests and just to get me ready physically to perform well when I got there.
So after the combine, do people reach out to you? Do they let you know where you're projected? How does that work?
So yeah, one interesting part of the combine is like you actually can have interviews with teams. So like obviously they have your phone number and stuff when you get there. So you'll just be like sitting in your room and you'll get a text and be like, you need to be down in the lobby in 5 minutes. You have a meeting with whoever. So I met with a few teams at the combine, Red Bull being one of them. So that was like kind of a sense of like, okay, like maybe these teams are like sort of interested. And then, yeah, I mean, there's like projections that like get put on MLS.com or whatever, like mock drafts and stuff. So, but those are, I think, written by a journalist or something like that, who obviously maybe isn't part of like the inside conversations. Yeah, but like I was projected like pretty high in those mock drafts. Obviously at the time you're like, well, I'm not going to put too much stock in them. But of course, like I was reading every single thing that was out there. And like I saw them like, oh, this is pretty quick. Yeah. I was like, this is awesome. Like get picked in the first round or like whatever. And then obviously you have your agent kind of like speaking to clubs on your behalf and stuff like that, and he's sort of telling you who's interested. So yeah, I actually had like a few teams who were like, look, we're really interested, but we don't think you're going to get out of the first round. So if you're around, we'll pick you and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, that's great. Like if I get picked in the first round, sweet. If not, then these teams will pick me up. But for whatever reason, like I didn't get picked in the first round, and it came down to a couple teams that had said for sure, if you're there, we'll pick you. And they didn't pick me. And then all of a sudden, I went from like, wow, I'm going to get picked in the first round to be like, wow, I don't know if I'm going to get picked at all.
Yeah.
And how it worked for the draft was like, so the first round was on ESPN. So I'm literally like watching on the computer in my kitchen with my mom, my sister, and a buddy of mine. My dad was at work, thankfully, because I think everybody at one time would have been like too stressful, especially like as longer it went on. So the first round was on like the whatever on ESPN, so we were watching. But then after that, the broadcast just ends. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I just literally go on the MLS website, and after that, they're just putting up picks as teams pick them. So literally, like I refresh the page once, my name's not there. Refresh the page again, my name's not there. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm not like, all right, I'll refresh it one more time. And then I look through, I'm like, oh, I got picked. So initially, it was just relief. Like I thought that I was gonna go higher or whatever, but now I'm just relieved that I got picked. But then like after like 5-10 minutes, it sort of started to sink in. I'm like, wow, like I'm gonna have a chance to keep playing and to make a little money doing it. And it was obviously really exciting.
You're like, it's game time now.
Yeah. So it's like time to work. Exactly.
Dude, that's awesome. Did you have any preferences or any teams like that did speak to you? Like, oh, we're gonna definitely, if you're around, we're gonna pick you. Did you have any teams that you're like, oh, I'd love to go there?
I mean, not really. I was just like, anywhere would have been great. Anywhere would have been great. Like, obviously, I love California, so it would have been great to stay in California. I'm from Seattle, so it had worked out to stay in Seattle, stay close to home. That would have been nice. But yeah, no, New York ended up being a great fit. Like, just sort of serendipitously, my aunt and uncle lived 15 minutes from the training facility there, so I lived with them all of last year, which was really nice.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I didn't have a super set preference. I was just like, look, whoever's going to give me an opportunity, I'm going to hopefully make them feel glad that they did.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good mentality to have too. Very positive. So after that, you see that you got drafted. Do you kind of wait around for somebody to give you a call? Does your agent call you? Like, what's the next step from there? Like, how do you make that move to New York?
Yeah, so the day of the draft, like after the draft, like I speak to the head coach and the GM and stuff like that, like a brief conversation. And then later on in the day, like the director of ops gives you a call and sort of starts to get the process going and to like get your flight booked out for preseason and stuff like that, and kind of give you some more details about what it was going to be. So yeah, like I think like basically a week and a half after the draft, I was on a flight to New York, and then I got there, spent like a couple nights in the hotel, sort of getting settled, and then we went to preseason. The first team went to preseason down at IMG Academy in Florida.
Okay.
So that's how it works. Is like when you get drafted, you go into at least the first part of preseason you do with the first team.
Okay. And how was that?
Really, really great. I mean, like, again, I was super fortunate to go to Davis, where we have a pretty good setup. Obviously, there's some better setups in terms of amenities at the Division I sort of collegiate soccer level, but like it's awesome. Like when I got like the food is so great or whatever, and then you have guys who are like complaining a little bit about the food. I'm like, are you guys kidding? Like this food is awesome. Like I can have as much as I want, but it was great. So yeah, I was just doing double days. So it's pretty much just sort of soccer all the time, or recovering from or getting ready for the next session in between. But it was great. It was great, and I was able to do kind of well enough where like they had other guys in on trial too. So like I think I got there, they had somebody from another goalkeeper from Leicester City on trial. And I was like, oh, great. Like I got drafted and now I got to go up against a guy who's been playing in a Premier League academy, but was able to do well enough where I got to stay and he had to go home. And then they had somebody who'd been playing for America or in the America Academy. And they brought him in. And again, I got to sort of stick around. So I can remember having a conversation with like, the goalkeeper coach. And I was sort of like, well, how I've been doing? He's like, well, if you've noticed, like people have come in and left and you're still here. So that's a pretty good indication that it's been going at least okay. Mm-hmm. So that felt good for sure. And got an opportunity to stay involved with the first team when we came back to sort of the New York, New Jersey area for a week. And then they went again to Arizona for like their second preseason camp. And I got to go along for the first week of that. And then I flew back to New York to join the USL team for their like preseason training camp in Richmond, Virginia.
So when you make that like, switch from the first team to the second team, do they have a conversation with you? Do they sit you down and like, listen, this is the direction we're going to go in, or how does that work?
Yeah, so essentially how it worked is, so when I was drafted, they had 2 goalkeepers signed to the first team. And so I was like, great, like opportunity for me to come in and be a number 3 for the MLS team. But during the time that we were in Florida, it came out that they were signing a European goalkeeper to the MLS team. So that sort of bumped me down from potentially signing an MLS deal to definitely signing a USL deal. So yeah, no, they were really upfront about like this is the situation, but you've been doing well. We want to keep you around, et cetera. So basically, I was with the first team until the European guy came in, and then once he came in, that's when I sort of moved out to the USL team.
So you hadn't signed anything yet?
No. So dude, I was on. That's another part of like the rights thing. Like when you get drafted in January, I was on maybe like a 5 or 6 week trial essentially. So for 5 or 6 weeks after the draft, like I'm pretty much playing for free and on trial. So nothing's guaranteed. So like you could have smashed it for 5 weeks, but on the first day of the 6th week you get hurt. Well, they're probably not going to sign you if you get hurt. So at the time I wasn't really thinking like too much about it, but looking back at it, I'm like, wow, like that's a long, because it sort of comes down to like where you sort of feel, you can sort of feel like every day there's like so much riding on it. But for me, I was just sort of like in the moment and just like enjoy it and like have as much fun as I can and learn as much as I can, which for me, I think is like the best way to sort of approach like sort of stressful or high pressure situations. Just like, well, this is going to be hard, obviously, but like, let me see how much I can get out of it and how I can gain out of it. So even if I succeed or fail, I'm still taking something from it moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And during those 5 to 6 weeks that you're basically on trial, do they offer you like a place to stay? Like, is your stuff paid for, or how does that work?
Yeah, no. So they take care of you for sure. I was just staying with my aunt and uncle because that's what I had chosen to do. But so how it works is like, at least in New York, the club owns a few houses, so that's where they put up players who are on trial, or at least for the USL contracts and some of like the rookie MLS deals, part of the deal is free housing. So you can get paid a salary and then you also get housing on top of that. So yeah, I could have stayed in that house, but I just opted to stay with my aunt and uncle just because I thought it would be better, more comfortable, and to be with family was a cool opportunity.